Thank you. I see a few friends, longtime friends. Hello, everybody. And to my new friends, thank you so much for inviting me. I do things a little bit differently, and I understand that there is sort of a pattern that we have um, in our, at least in our Western practices, that we sit and then we have a Dharma talk and we have questions. But I actually like to give the Dharma talk first, because the Dharma talk can definitely inform our time of sitting and contemplation. If we could think of of meditation time, or that sitting time is contemplative illumination, then it would be useful to have something to contemplate during that time. And from that contemplation, one arrives in meditation. So meditation to me is not a method. It's not a practice. Meditation is actually a state that one enters into. And so there are conditions for being able to enter into a certain state. And so I just like to lay the foundation for that. You probably don't listen to music either, but I do. And I would like to open then with a song um, that our choir sings. Yes, we have a choir that kind of sets the stage for the sharing of the Dhamma, that will set the stage for um, our meditation. And so I'm ready. Deb will start with that.
Cut my strings to the illusory. Cut my strings to all attachment that's binding. May I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use. Compassionate action has no limit, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything, moving freely in the stillness of peace. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. Untie my knots of selfish wants. Untie my knots of hurtful thoughts. May I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use, may I be of benefit, may I be of use. Compassionate action has no limit, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything, moving freely in the stillness of peace. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease. I wish our minds the state of unimpeded ease, like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything,
So that's a song written by our choir that's coming out on our album that'll be released next month. I apologize for singing. Whenever I'm not supposed to be doing something, you have to mute me because I get in the moment of it, and some of these people may not know me. So that song brings us to something that state a mind's a state of unimpeded ease. Words are so powerful and they're so important when we're in a place of ignorance. But as we step out of ignorance, words begin to lose their importance, and because it's only a partial um, explanation of reality, what's really happening, what's really going on. And we talk about a topic like emptiness. I mean, how are we going to talk about it? What are we going to use but ordinary words? So we're not going to be able to describe it. We're going to be talking about something that's in our coming from the mind, coming from the intellect, coming from the thoughts, and so it will not be the thing at all. But it doesn't mean that the thing cannot be apprehended. It just means that you can't really talk about it in a true sense because it's beyond conceptualization. And so we have to use inference, like pointing towards something. Like many times when the Buddha was teaching and he's getting to this level of actual like disclosure of the nature of the universe, he would say it's like this or it's like that. So in the beginning, there could be a lot of talk and a lot of discussion and a lot of views and a lot of opinions, and but as you walk deeper into this river, it becomes impossible to explain it, express it in its entirety. Yet he says it can be experienced. And it's out of that deep experience that practitioners have that they bring back with them a kind of power and capacity to encourage and provoke others to like just go in that direction. And as they walk in that direction, they at their own pace, with their own level of understanding, with their own determination, with their own interest, they begin to discover the mystery and uncover the mystery of life. We like to talk about the mystery and so on, but mystery just means don't know. And so mystery is good to a point because it takes you from the known, which can be what really impedes and hinders us from finding our escape, and finding our way unto an absolute freedom. We get impeded by the known, what we do know. And whatever we encounter and come up against, we always put it against what we do know. But the Buddha encouraged us to listen. That's number one. He didn't say, okay, I'm going to give you something and I want you to think about it. He didn't start with thinking. He talked about listening. And there is something in the listening, if one is truly listening, that allows a reverse order. So instead of taking what you're hearing and putting it into the container of what you already know, you're hearing it, and then you will be able to sift what you already know through that container that's being presently offered. And that can make the difference between winning the prize and missing the mark. And so some of us have practiced 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years and have missed the mark because they've been trying to take what they hear and sift it through the lens of their personal experience instead of allowing their what they already know, to be filtered through the teachings of the Buddha. So I wanted to talk about unimpeded today and see if that word can create a bridge that takes us somewhere. So I'm not going to talk in like academic terms, and I never read anywhere where he said be a good academician. And so this if I hear something from somebody, I want it to be, not even just a practitioner. There's when you have like a team, a baseball team or a football team or basketball team, you have your players, but then you have your starting line. Your starting line are those who have practiced well, but they get to go out on the field and they get to play in the real game. So sometimes we think of being a practitioner, but we need to be thinking about playing in the real game. I don't hear that much talk about accomplishment in the Dharma. We talk about studying the Dharma, learning the Dharma, teaching the Dharma, sharing the Dharma, but I don't hear a lot of talk about accomplishment in the Dharma. And the Buddha was talking about accomplishment. I'm going to tell you, he wasn't there just to teach something. He was, the purpose was to lead us towards absolute accomplishment. And he told us what we could accomplish. He said that we could discover, we could uncover, we could burst through and bring to the surface our intrinsic nature, our original nature that's been obscured since beginningless time, with the defilements and the taints of our thoughts, our speech, our action. And as we start to bring that forward, what comes with it is competencies, what comes with it is abilities, what comes with it is knowing. The thing about knowing something, if you look at how the universe it is naturally, it's all in circles. I don't see any straight lines in the universe, but we have this idea that everything has to be linear. Everything is like linear, step by step, one foot in front of the other, and it just doesn't measure up with everything else in the natural world. But yet that's our story, and we're sticking to it. But it can be a hindrance to us at some point if we could think of it that it's more like a slinky and kind of moving in a circular fashion. So we learn something and time goes on and goes around and that lesson comes back to us again. But now we have a little different slant on it, a little different way of looking at it, a little different way of holding it. Uh, and then it goes around and something very similar comes around again and that same topic comes up and now we're holding it even in a different way maybe than I held it yesterday or 1 hour ago because of something that transpired in the last hour. And then it could be something related to this thing that I'm looking at, or it could be something as as distant as somebody threw a rock and hit the window. Now that's just changed my whole mood and how I look and see things. So it can be near or it can be far. And if we don't understand this, we will end up with a kind of academic understanding of the Dharma that will not take us to our goal. It will not, and we do have a goal that nothing to do and nowhere to go and nothing to do. That holds true when we've done all that needs to be done. But before that, there is something to do and there is somewhere to go. So um, we can't hold any Dharma speak as the absolute unerring truth in every situation for everybody at throughout all times. And when we do, that's how we kind of devolve into a kind of Buddhist studies and a Buddhist practice, but we'll never be first string. We'll never be the ones that get out on the field. So I want to try to share with you a way of looking at the Dharma that's more real before we destroy what we call real and get to what the Buddha calls real, because they are not the same thing. When we speak of reality, we think about rationality. We think about that our perception does have a place in the material world, in the physical world. But if I'm cooking food, I'm not cooking food in the bathroom. And if I'm in the bathroom, I'm not doing what I do in the living room. And so things have to be compartmentalized so to get the highest usages. And sometimes we just mix it all together with worldly words and Webster's definition of it, and we miss how the Buddha himself has defined what he's speaking about using words. So he says that there are three kinds of what time do I have to stop? We started at 2. would
Yeah, well,
240.
yes.
I used to be Pentecostal. We could go all night, so that's why
Yeah,
I need
40.
to handle a
Yeah,
little
at
bit.
40 would be good.
240 would be good. Okay. So we have to compartmentalize or look at what he says about wisdom. Wisdom is not of one kind. He talks about well, many different kinds, but in this particular case, he's talking about there is language wisdom or language prajna. And it says language prajna, that's taking you from a 0 point, like just say taking us from ignorance to something, kind of having an idea of something, kind of understanding something. So it takes us from ignorance to understanding something in maybe a superficial way. So you can already see the limitations of language prajna. So language prajna is useful for getting started, for coming out the gate. And then from language prajna, we have contemplative illumination. Contemplative illumination prajna is a prajna that dawns, or wisdom that dawns on us from reflection. Reflection is not defining words. Reflection is assessing experience, and so that's the second kind. And then the third is prajna itself, which is the unalterable truth of the universe. And so one has to gradually, and enter these different stages of prajna, starting with language prajna, contemplative illumination, and arriving at the doorstep of of uh, of absolute prajna, the prajna of the Samyak Sambuddha, the highest level of attainment or awakening or illumination or enlightenment or whatever you want, whatever word you want to put on that, but you can't put a word on it because it goes beyond our conceptual capacity. But he says, I tell you this, it can be experienced. So when we're sitting in meditation and we're trying to um, still our mind, we're using faculties to try to still it. You can't tell yourself don't think about something. The minute you tell yourself don't think, then uh, well, you're going to get into conceptualization of thinking, and when you tell yourself don't think, that you're engaging in an action that will actually produce the opposite effect. You can't like just stop. But there are things that say that if it's hot outside and the ground is parched, you can't say ground don't be parched, but a gentle rain will come and it will take care of the parched ground. So this thing that we awaken to it. That means that it has resident in it a power of its own to accost us, to come upon us, and we become the recipient of it. Uh, and yet, much like how the sun shines, the sun's not thinking, "Oh, I'm shining on Pannavati today." The sun is just acting out of its own nature and its own capacity, and that's how wisdom does. And wisdom shines upon us, and we feel the rays of that wisdom, and we become nurtured and nourished, and of one kind with that wisdom. And that has nothing to do with things that we fabricate in our head or even reason through our intellect. And so it's very difficult for us to kind of grasp this notion because we are, after all, an intellectual people, and probably the best ones, on the whole planet because we pride ourselves in those kinds of gains. But so why do you think when he's talking that the highest teachings are the teachings of emptiness then? It would seem like we're going kind of in the wrong direction. Um, and so he warns us, he cautions us about taking the raft to get to the other shore and then tying the raft on our back and walking around with the raft. Uh, and so unimpeded means the ability to function freely without any pediment. Because it's only in this state that wisdom and illumination are equal. There's a non differentiation of things. The more we use our intellect, the more we differentiate, the more we divide, the more we um, point out the differences, the more we compare, the more, and so there has to be a practice of not doing that, of not um, um, dividing, of not slotting out, of not characterizing. And in this way, we start to gradually move towards emptiness. Now, so if throughout my whole day, every day, everything that I do is around using discriminating awareness, so that I can see and taste and touch and smell and think all of these different things, then I'm going to sit down on the pillow and I'm just going to go into emptiness. How is that possible? It's not possible. And it's what he would call a false kind of emptiness. And so he says, well, the first thing I want to remind you is that you'll know if you're getting to what is real because you can do it when you're sitting, you can do it when you're standing, you can do it when you're lying down, you can do it when you're walking, you can be in a certain mind state in any one of those postures. So it means that I don't have to, and I don't have to like get with a group and we all sit so that I can be in meditation. I can't meditate unless I'm sitting with the group, or I can't meditate unless I'm just sitting alone by myself. I should be able to be moving, to be active, to be doing what I need to do in a kind of non-attached way, a non-attached meaning non-differentiating way, to be able to carry out all of my duties. One time they said to the Buddha, he said, what do you think about me? And they were saying, oh, we think that you love us so much, and that you do all of this. He said, it's not like that at all. And I'm sure that some of them, their feelings were hurt because, we like to be special. We want to be special. It's human nature. But he's talking about Buddhic nature. And that's different from human nature. So there's a transformation. There is a changing of lineage. We move from the class of just ordinary human beings. He would speak of us as ordinary, untaught, run-of-the-mill humans, and so that's not a put down. He's just saying, like, on the map, you are here, and this is where there is to go. But you already know that there is somewhere to go because that's why there comes a drive for it, there comes a taste for it, there comes a longing for it, a yearning for it, there comes a looking for it. Because you already know. And what is that already knows? That is your intrinsic original Buddha nature. It's already there. And that's why it says, don't go outside looking for it, because it's already there. And so particularly in these accelerated times, I mean, everything is accelerated as we were speaking at the beginning of the program, this is what is needed now. So nobody's going back to horse and buggy, certainly not going back to walking except for sport, And so by the same token, there are skillful means that can be implemented and taken up, can be used today that will help redeem the time for us in keeping with the movement of everything else. So we could say, like, if we're going to hell in a handbasket, then we're going to need some kind of trajectory for goodness that can move as fast as we're moving towards hell in a handbasket. It's not going to wait for us. And so I'd like to offer a different way of knowing and understanding meditation if I can. And sometimes we can think like, oh, well, it's got to be more than that. And I especially want it to be more than that for other people, considering how hard I've worked at it and how many years I have put into it. For it to have its value, we weigh it on the basis of our effort, but it's not necessarily on the basis of our effort. I mean, he made it very simple when he gave his first Dhamma talk, and you'll find that in the Majjhima Nikaya, on the Sutta number 1, and that's the one that nobody studies nobody reads, nobody wants to talk about, because that's the one about how easy it is to just abide in our emptiness. And at the end of that sutta, at the end of every sutta, they say these were the words of the Buddha, and the disciples were delighted, to hear it. But if you look at that one, that one, it says these were the words of Buddha, and they weren't they weren't delighted. They weren't delighted to hear it. And because they were not delighted to hear that, we have all the other 84,000 teachings and methods to try to find one that you'll delight in, or another. So one observes through illumination that only through illumination that the myriad phenomena, that come through our sense gates of everything we hear or see or taste or touch or smell or think, uh, uh, are empty of originally existing in that form. So if you cut me open, you're not going to find Pannavati, right? It's something like that. No matter what we uh, consider in the phenomenal world, if you begin to break it down, it's not that first thing that we saw. Now that's easy. The mind can wrap around that. I mean, like, that just makes common sense. And that's a starting point. And we consider understanding emptiness then from that place, but that is just the starting point. And unless there's something that could make some sense to the intellectual mind and how it perceives things, you can't go any further. But once that's done, that's understood, then he talks about our attachment to these things have to be completely emptied out until there is like no phenomena. Now, there are practices that we would do in Zen, and when you come out and then your teacher would say, "What is this?" And and like, we collectively agree that we're going to call this bowl, at least in English, and say, "What is this?" And the person says, "Cow," and it says, "You passed," and give you your certificate. But actually, it means more. It means more than that. When one gets to a place that they have a unilateral view of everything, it begins to change the composition of what they see, and how they hold what they see. And it's in that way that detachment begins to occur, or I would say non-attachment as opposed to detachment, because it's not a cutting off of things. In the Sutta on meditation, he says, let your meditation be like this. He said you can spit in the wind. He said, consider the earth, air, fire, and water. You can spit in the water. You can throw trash on the earth. You can, no matter what you do, those elements they're not offended. They're not offended by it. Let your meditation be like that. He says they're not humiliated by it. If you throw a piece of trash on the ground, unless you're going to anthropomorphize the ground like a human being, then you're going to say you can throw it on the ground, and the ground is not offended. It's not humiliated by it. And so he says, let your meditation be like that. So then that means that there are things in there. It's not void of everything. It's like it's nothing there, but it is of the quality of non-differentiation. Now, to get into the quality of non-differentiation requires something, and usually more than what we want to give. That's why we keep it in the intellectual bent, because it's going to require something of us, not being offended at something that everybody just commonly agrees one should take offense in. And one can take offense in it. It's just saying that doesn't lead to Buddhahood. That's all we're saying. I mean, you can decide what you want to be and know what your goal is. And I'm talking now about the goal, those who take up the Dharma for the goal of Buddhahood. and what that requires and what that leads to. And it leads to a mind that starts to become equal minded. And a mind that becomes equal minded becomes a mind that becomes steady in all situations, good and bad. That mind becomes stable, in every situation. That mind, that equality then allows one to not have to make choices because it sees the whole expanse of what is going on. And then there can be an action, not out of preference, not out of familiarity, not out of closeness, not out of anger, not out of acquiescence, not out of agreement, not out of any of those things that come through the lens of differentiation. And then that is how the pure essence of wisdom that comes from your Dharmakaya body, your intrinsic original nature, begins to flow up through the levels and cutting through the ignorances that have accumulated since beginningless time, and that have just totally overshadowed the capacity and the power of that original nature. And so this is the kind of preeminent and foremost aspiration that the Buddha had. And one day he talked with his disciples and said, which is more, the leaves in my hand or the leaves in the field and forest? And they said, the leaves in the forest. He said, yes, the leaves in my hand, that's what I'm teaching you. Leaves in the forest is what I know. And so the first thing it lets us know is that there is so much that can be known. And expedience is just giving a person what they need to know to be able to surmount the suffering of the present moment and to catapult into the next moment. But as time goes on, by walking in with developing this sense of non-differentiation, so we have to say to ourselves, if I say to myself, so when something is occurring and that doesn't meet the standard of what you consider the enlightened mind, you have to say something to yourself, right in that moment, not later, like when we contemplate, I shouldn't have done that thing, I'm gonna do better next time. But right in that moment, stopping and saying to myself, this view, this attitude, this thought, this feeling, this is all based on a differentiation of mind, and moving, desiring, yielding to your great aspiration of having a non-differentiating mind that can hold and see everything perfectly so that one knows how to execute perfectly, how to move with perfect accomplishment, and without any dredges of the weight of an I holding on to it. I mean, the I is so heavy. Even a good I is heavy. There's a heaviness in carrying around you. There's a heaviness in carrying around me. Sometimes I'm so sick of myself, just tired. Boy, she is heavy, and then there comes this to just drop, wanting to just drop her off, But how that actually happens is if in the moment when she's being discriminating, and when she's differentiating, and when she's having her own view, and when, that sense of a very firm self that needs to be, protected, or even some thought of self that needs to be rejected, whenever it arises, is in noticing that right at that moment and yielding, surrendering that which comes with attaching to, identifying that moment as having anything to do with a personal me. Now, this is not a thing that you can say much more about because it's a thing that has to be done. This is what we do. This is our practice, is uprooting that which is false. And as we practice uprooting that which is false, then we can be appointed to go into the first string and get out on the field. Now, when we get out on the field, then they have goalposts or home bases, and and it's like that. And when we're out on that field, we can't like just grab the ball and run in any direction. We have to run in a particular direction to gain yards, to gain ground, and then touchdown or cross that field goal. And so we have to have a sense of what direction to go in. And we have to know that there's going to be an opposition, and this is a game, right? There's going to be an opposition. And so we're going to get hurt. We're going to get bruised. We're going to get stopped because, and we can kind of look at that and recognize that I have to have certain capacities to be out there running on that field, and if we don't have it, then we're going to get hurt. If we don't know what it is, we will find out through our sorrows. When we do know what it is, which is our attachment to the phenomenal things, by not being able to see the intrinsic emptiness of everything, then we will miss the joy, the marvelous freedom of walking this life and living in this world and being able to encourage or help save living beings. And so a lot of the sadness today, a lot of the sense of hopelessness today that are arising in spiritual practitioners is because they haven't gone deep enough into the Buddha's teachings. It's more than for being happy with our things. It's more than for just, having the good heart to provide food, clothing, and shelter for people. It's more than any of those things. Anybody, doesn't even have to be a practitioner, can provide food, clothing, or shelter. But we talk about living in a time when there's uncommon evil in the world. So we need to have an uncommon goodness and capacity to meet it. And so I want to encourage you to go deeper in your practice. We don't have to keep regurgitating what we already know, but being open up to the uncommon wisdom, the uncommon experiences, to know more than what we know, and to not evaluate that through the lens of what we already know, but to sift what we already know through the lens of the deeper teachings, the ones that we couldn't understand, the ones that we said, I don't think it takes all of that. And that will restore your spark, your vitality, your fire, your joy, your vision, and your capacity for clear seeing, and you'll be able to walk and not get tired. You'll be able to run and not be weary. You will be able to unleash the heretofore unleashed additional capacities and faculties that we possess. So I'm in the room here with a dog, and I'm ending in 2 minutes. With a dog has a different visual capacity. They could see some things we can't see. Cat can hear some things that we can't hear. Our bandwidth doesn't expand wide enough. But as we do these practices, he spoke of the competencies and the capacities that come along with them. And he spoke specifically of 5. He called them supernormal powers. We don't have to call them supernatural powers. Supernormal means more than normal, more than ordinary. So there are capacities that come with our practice, and we should not think that they don't. If we do, we will never engage them. We will never take them up, and they will never have expression in our life. And what a pity. We will not be able to serve the world in the way that we can. All Buddha Dharma is a worldly Dharma. This is where we need it, right here, not in some other sweet land by and by. It's right here. And he left us everything we need to come up to the fullness of the measure of the stature of a Buddha. Why? Because it is our own original nature. And so I want to stop there and go into our meditation, and I'm going to guide it a little bit in the beginning, and then I'm going to drop out of your way and let you just think your thoughts until they become unnecessary and they fall away. We don't have to meditate to think. We can think without doing this. But to get to a place that we can hold everything equally means holding nothing specially. All of these things that we hold, that we think about, that we feel, is what creates a sense of self. And we attach to these, or we hold to these as the definition of who we are. It's what creates our stories. And we'll tell them to you, and we'll tell them to ourselves over and over and over again, more firmly entrenching and concretizing this sense of a self. These 6 sense bases become activated all the time. The 5 aggregates: form, feeling, conception, consciousness, mind,
off there.
Are these 5 aggregates where create what we call our personhood, or our self. And as they start to become equalized, naturally, the sense of them begins to fall away. There's more of a sense of expansiveness, that I'm more than just who and what I think I am. I'm more than just what I hear. I'm more than just what someone has said about me. All of those are just like patches that are overlaid over a framework. But he's talking about something else now. He's talking about a Buddha, one whose mind is unlimited and expansive. And that seed is resident in me. I'm a part of all that. So I am a part of all that is the first thought that can come. But later, it's just the notion of all that. No, I am a part. There is just all that. And the I that is a part of all that begins to dissolve. There is just all that.
Come on. Come on over here. Come on. Come on. Come on, Freddie.
This dissolving into that sense of all that doesn't feel limited and myopic. Actually, it feels expansive and vast. All that. And it has a certain quality and a certain energy that, rather than being limiting and confining, becomes magnanimous and unlimited, a sense of unlimitedness. and non-differentiation, no difference between me and you, the couch, the cat. It's just all that. And if you touch it for a couple of seconds here and there, you become firmly aware of when things begin to coalesce again, when you begin to feel a drawing together of aggregates, when you begin to feel a feeling, when you begin to think a thought, and you see that there is coming and there is going, and you can know through direct experience, there is also that place of no coming and no going. So all coming and all going resides within this broader field of emptiness. So I can abide in the myopic space of somethingness, but I can know that beneath that somethingness, there is no thingness, boundless without measure. And then I don't have to cut out sounds because I am acquainted with the underlying emptiness of sound. I can take it up, sound, I can lay it down. I can like it or not like it. If I don't like it, I can change the record and put something else on. Or I can just let it play and not be all caught up in that. And just having these little experiences of touching into the underlying no thingness of everything helps us to know definitely we are no different. So there's not just the emptiness of self, there's the emptiness of all dharmas. That would include the Buddha Dharma. But you have to enter the state of refinement to pick up that chord, that frequency. So it does require some thinking. It does require some investigation. And it 90% requires cultivation. And it culminates in meditation. Cut my strings to the illusory. Cut my strings and attachments that bind. And then the true usages will come forward, will be a benefit. With the kind of compassionate power that is without limit. I wish a mind's estate of unimpeded ease. Like the smoke dancing in the wind, not caught or bound by anything. Unimpeded means to function freely without hindrance, attaining a state of natural freedom. Does not imply that there is nothing there, but that there is something there, yet whatever is there produces no obstacle whatsoever. And so one contemplates that all dharmas are empty, yet not empty. And we can hold the manifested, marvelous existence of life without aggravation, because one is acquainted with the underlying emptiness. And one can execute in the world, yet remain free of attachment. Not attached to the emptiness and not attached to the marvelous existence. The Buddha said, if one sees all forms as no forms, then one sees the Tathagata. And through this practice, phenomena will change in accordance with your mind. Mm. So thank you for sitting. And I want to say that coming out of a time of sitting should be as simple as being able to open your eyes because you did not descend into a fog. Rather than shutting down into a fog, one becomes expansive and totally present. It's almost as if when we think like when we're meditating, like our space closes in and in and in and in and in. But actually it should go out and out and out and out this way until everything is included in your meditation space. Yet there is an equality of everything, but within the sphere of your awareness. So nothing is popping up and shouting at you, but all of it is there. The totality of everything is there, just undifferentiated. And the more you work with it in that way, there will be no difference between meditating and not meditating, because you will be abiding in a certain state. So I think I would like to stop there. Some things shouldn't talk about too much. You just say, go it that away. And so you can take over, Jorge, and do what you do.
Thank you. So just to tell you that we have a few minutes left. So if there are any questions you would like to ask, any reflections. I know there's something in the chat from Monica. She asks if you can provide a reference to the sutta you referenced earlier about meditation being easy.
Yeah, she can take the Majjhima Nikaya and she can read. So, do I have a copy right quick? Let me give.
Not yours, but
I would say specifically, and the sutta that I was talking about that they weren't happy with, it was called the root of all things, sutta number 1. So I would say sutta number 6, sutta number 5, sutta number 4. These deal without blemishes. If a bhikkhu should wish for something, and sutta number 2, all the taints, because this tells you everything you have to do to be able to enter a meditative state. These are things, the cultivation that's required off the pillow and the way to turn one's mind in order to be able to enter a state. He said the things that you do, you call that meditation. He said, you call that practice. I don't call that practice. He said, I call that a pleasant abiding here and now. He said, but this is what I call practice. And then he tells us all the things we have to do off the pillow so that when we turn our minds in that quiet space, there is nothing there. Don't empty out. There is simply nothing there. We see the underlying emptiness of everything. I think it's sutta number 60 that talks about letting your meditation be like the earth, air, fire, and water. Let me see if can somebody help me find it? And that's an excellent question, because this is a that's a sutta that and then Sutta 128 talks about the states that you get in and what you realize and what you experience in those states based on a certain cultivation. Sutta number 60 is the sutta on the incontrovertible teachings, where he says some recluses and Brahmins hold that there are no immaterial realms, but I say that has not been known by me, because there are immaterial realms. That's in Sutta number 60. And he tells how one is able to enter into those immaterial realms, the conditions that qualify the mind to be able to dwell in those spaces. And after a while, you'll see that this is Sutta 62 is the one on the elements that your meditation be like: the earth, air, fire, and water.
Okay, so now we have Gabriella. We wanted to.
Hey, Gabriella.
You can unmute yourself, Gabriella, please.
Hi, Pannavati. So wonderful to see you.
Long time, my friend. Yeah.
So I'm wondering for some words of wisdom of how, as activists, we hold being in this world right now, which seems so challenging and so full of hatred and ignorance. And how do we hold that? How is that part of this sense of impermanence?
So that's a really good question. And what he's letting us know is that if we cannot enter these states, we're going to be limited in what we can do and how we can hold the world, because it takes a shift in view. If I look at something that's this big, then everything has to occur between here and here. And a big thing comes up, takes up half of this, then it's going to be difficult for me, because it's so big that it's taking up half of my field. But if I was boundless in my perspective and that same thing came up, it would be minuscule in terms of my whole capacity, my capacity to hold everything. And then that becomes something that is manageable for me. So we manage things according to how we can see them. How we can view them determines how we can hold them. And so unless we have a more expanded view, a more expanded experience, a more expanded awareness of the totality of life, we will be overcome by the heaps that we confront ourselves with. So I would talk to a lot of activists, and I would say, if you look at it, a lot of your activism is based on your attachment to a certain view. A lot of your activism is based on a certain experience you had, so you can identify with that kind of suffering, and it's one reason why you have so much difficulty holding it. I was listening to a story the other day on the news, and they were talking about what was happening, in Israel and Palestine, and there was this whole, and it was like so over encompassing. It was the biggest thing happening in the world. And I said, I can tell you that same thing's happening in 50 countries in India. That's happening. And that's not to diminish or minimize, but what I'm saying is how we are selective. And so we create our suffering based around some selectivity. And so we become limited then and we suffer because of that selectivity, and so it's having to broaden our capacity to hold more of the world. And you'd be surprised that the more we can hold, there is a corresponding power that comes with that holding. That's what I'm saying. We don't think that goodness has any power. We think goodness is good, but we don't think it has any power. But we think bad has power. And because we think that way, we don't have solutions, and we don't have alternatives, and we can't change things or bring things. Things appear in the world according to the power we give it internally. And bad folks are better at envisioning what they want to see unfold in the world. So we have to broaden and change our way of thinking and holding things until ours is so vast, so all encompassing, and then we will see situations begin to shift. Not our mind shifting according to what we see, but things, but our things shifting according to our mind. And this is a power that's available not to everyone who practices, but those who go all the way. And so if we could go further than we're going, we will see that we will be able to, and we'll get the fortification to not be burnt out. Who's burnt out? There is a self that's burnt out. And so sometimes we have to step back a little bit to advance, but we try to keep going. It's required sometimes that we stop, that we step back, we pick up more tools, we become vaster in our compassion for friend and foe, our friends and enemies. And then maybe one understands that one a little bit better, and maybe one can get to what the real issue is. And so it's a process. We've been in samsara a long time. Yeah. But I say to the one who's burnt out, it's the self that's burned out. Give self a rest.
Thank you.
For some of us, it's almost like Dalai Lama said, like, compassion is my religion. So when I was an activist, that's a really old, what do you call it, bio. I only exclusively teach on correct cultivation and learning from Buddha. Now, exclusively on cultivation that leads and allows unimpeded ease. But the Dalai Lama said that compassion is my religion. And, I think for a while, many, activism is their religion, and so they're not going to have what they need to sustain them and allow them to be of their greatest help. There is an activism that emerges as the result of our perfected practice. But activism and trying to slather a little Buddhism around the edges and on top of it, you're not going to have quite the same results, because the mind, the expansiveness of the compassion that's needed to hold the situation is going to be deficient. Matt, are you on? Matt Patch.
Yes.
Not a real word. Matt, what kind of
Yes.
cat? What kind of cat is that?
That's just my cat. That's my black cat.
I mean, what breed?
Just a short hair black cat.
I was okay. I'm asking because we just, rescued a cat, and this is off base, but it's not off base. And he's so unlike any cat we have ever had. And so we looked it up, and it looks like he's an Egyptian, call it Egyptian cat, and it's some breed of Egyptian, and we're going to do a DNA because he's like not a domesticated cat, but he looks just like your cat. But he's extremely powerful, and so I was hoping you would just save me the DNA charge by telling me what he was. So okay.
Sorry, I can't help you there.
Okay. George? Okay.
Any more questions? I don't think so. Let me check the chat. Nothing.
Good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for inviting me.
I just want to thank you, Venerable Pannavati, again, and all of you, friends. And maybe we can just unmute ourselves and say goodbye in a preferred way in our own language, and make this cacophony of a Sangha. And see you around.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Much love.
Thank you
Thank you very
all.
much. Be well.
Stay well.
Thank you
Stay
so
well.
much. Goodbye. Thank you.
Good
Merci.
care. Merci.
Tschüss.
Boa noite.